Welcome, everyone, to the HeroX Innovation Leadership Speaker Series. I'm Jamie Elliott. I'm joined today by Rebecca Teeters. Rebecca is the Associate Dean with the Longy School of Music at Bard College. Rebecca, it's so great to have
It's
you
a
here today.
pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your innovation journey so far.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, I'm the associate dean at Longy. Longy's a conservatory based in Cambridge, and we've been around for a really long time. I've personally been at Longy for 4 years now. And the school, it teaches musicians, right? It's right in our title, School of Music. But we're not your traditional conservatory. For those of you who maybe don't know, when you go to a traditional conservatory in the United States or in Europe or really anywhere, there's a pretty prescripted curriculum. And I would say it hasn't changed all that much in the past hundreds of years. So one of the things that at Longy we've been doing over the past decade is really asking, why is that? And if we are preparing musicians for today, our curriculum needs to reflect that and really address the struggles that our students are going through now. So we've really worked hard to flip the script on what a traditional conservatory education looks like. So a lot of the work that we do has been pretty innovative in that we are challenging the status quo and truly believe that the world needs more musicians now than ever. So, what is our role in that? And it's about preparing musicians, preparing our students to go out and make a difference in the world. And so, we really focus in on social change, on finding your voice, your artistry, and finding the path for success, however you determine that to be. And so, we do that through a really innovative curriculum called the Catalyst curriculum, which I'm happy to talk more in detail about, but it's something that we have found has really prepared our students to go out into the 21st century world when there is huge competition for all those spots in orchestras, to also realize that your training as a musician can set you on so many paths. So it's really about finding the right path for yourself.
It sounds like because it's going well, it's something that the faculty as well as the students are likely very proud to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I find really fascinating is the conversations that I have both with students and faculty alike around what is it that they need. When I talk with students, I'm constantly asking, what is it that you think that you need to be successful? How can Longy help you with that? And on the flip side, I'm always asking faculty, what do you wish you would have had in your education? And I myself am a musician too. I'm a conservatory trained musician. And I sit back and think, man, I really wish I'd had that class when I was a student. So I look at what Longy's doing now as a kind of roadmap for what I personally think all conservatories should be doing moving forward. And it's really thinking about how music truly can have impact on the world and how we can prepare our students to create that impact.
Wow. So I want to dive a little bit into, I want to come back and dive into the discussion about how you ask your students and your faculty those things. But tell me about the Catalyst
Absolutely.
curriculum.
So when we talk about a traditional conservatory experience, what you typically see with the requirements that we ask students to take are obviously lessons, which we definitely teach. We're teaching our students how to have those skills that they need as musicians. But there's also a really prescriptive requirement set, things like so many credits of music history and theory, which are very Western European centric courses. So they have to take so many of those, so many methodology classes, and there is not often a lot of choice. And there's not really a focus on all of those career skills that you need beyond being an excellent musician. Because we are a small school and we are in a graduate school, we expect our students to come in with that already established musicianship, with the already established skills. And so what we're doing is helping them take that next step. So as we started to think about what do we want every student at Longy to take, it's the courses around career skills building. It's the courses around entrepreneurship. So we started having those conversations, and that's where Catalyst came. So the only requirements that are universal, no matter what major you are at Longy, are our core Catalyst classes. Those are two intensives that focus on audience engagement and curation. So how are you thinking about who is my audience? What is it that they need? And how can I create concerts or events that meet those needs? We have a requirement within career skill building specifically. So honing in on those skills that are rarely taught at a conservatory, like money for musicians or entrepreneurship, creating your own gigs, even our musician's portfolio, which is about branding. How do you talk about yourself? Right, in an authentic way that makes sense, all leading from your own artistic purpose, your own mission, the things that really drive you. And it's not something that a lot of students are thinking about in their early 20s. So it's where we start is what is your artistic why? They're also taking project-based learning courses. So they get to do something from start to finish, from ideation to completion and everything in between. Like, how do you build a budget? How do you market something and build a marketing timeline that makes sense? How do you find your audience? And then they also take an engagement, at least one engagement course. It's where we put them out in the community. So we have a course on music and civic engagement. So they pick a community, they learn about the needs of that community, and then they create something specific towards that, that music can help serve that need. There's a student-centered teaching course that's all about culturally responsive teaching. We have a lot of musicians that become educators. Are they thinking about how we teach in our classrooms in a culturally responsive way? And then we also have our music as a healing arts class. It's one of our core pillars, actually, within Catalyst, using music as service and not necessarily just a perfect performance, but how can music be used in a way to connect, to provide a healing environment within hospitals, senior living centers, prisons, homeless shelters, any community of need. So those are our core classes that everyone takes. And then, of course, they have other classes. They take history, they take theory, but there's a ton of choice in what they can focus in on those. And they are very much aligned again with that artistic purpose and what they are defining as the things that are important to them as artists. So that's kind of Catalyst as a really brief overview. There's obviously a lot
That's
more
great.
that our students are doing. They're taking performance classes and improvisation classes, custom commission programs where they get to create something from scratch, write music, even if they're not composers, or work with composers, experience what it's like to premiere a piece for the very first time. These are all requirements of our students that kind of flip the script on what we would see in a traditional community.
Wow. How long has the Catalyst curriculum been in practice?
It started about 8 or 9 years ago with four main pillars, those career skills, the intensives, the project learning, and the audience engagement courses, and then the getting out in the community courses. And it took some time, I think, to
Yeah.
change some minds about like how we're approaching this. But from what I am seeing with our students when we're talking with them, these are what they're really looking for is the chance to just get out and try it and do it and fail. And that's okay. And learn from that failure and then get out and do it successfully. And the pride that I see when they do that or when they explore something new or an avenue that they've never ever even considered, I can use my music in that way too. It's pretty inspiring, to be honest.
I can imagine your introduction to how conservatories have done things and still do things the way they've done them for hundreds of years. It seems like a pretty bold move to change your entire curriculum and say, nope, this is going to be better.
I think it really was. It's very innovative of our senior leadership when they first brainstormed this. And then when they were talking with the faculty and then saying, like, I know this is how you were taught, but let's think about it differently. And what I want to applaud our president and our senior staff is that they were willing to not just do something because we've always done it. It's something I've struggled with when as a conservatory graduate myself is we have incredible schools here in the United States. We really do that are making incredible musicians. but there are a limited number of violin spots in an orchestra, right? So the schools are churning out hundreds and hundreds of wonderfully trained musicians every year for a very small number of seats. And there's often this rhetoric that if you don't land one of those seats, you're no longer succeeding as a musician. And that's just not true. And it's just this really old, tired rhetoric that we're just trying to completely change, that your music is important and your passion for it is important. And even if you aren't singing at the Met, that doesn't make you a not successful musician. I love to sing. I go sing. Of course, I'd love to sing at the Met, but I'm completely happy with the way I am using my music to educate others, to serve in a therapeutic way. And so we're just trying to show them that there are more than just one path to success. And for us, that's been incredibly successful.
It also seems like there's a couple things that you've mentioned. Having those core courses as a basis that seem to integrate better with the world that they're going to be going into when they leave Longy. And also having that safe space to try things and, as you said, fail, which is very, very similar to the challenge models that we do at HeroX, right? When we do a lot of ideation challenges, but we also do challenges with multiple phases so that you can try things and fail and pivot and figure it out. I think that there's also likely a sense of empowerment that comes to the students when they get out into the world, and an assuredness that they have in themselves when they try for an orchestra and maybe don't get a seat, because they're prepared for that failure. They're prepared, or maybe they don't even look at it as failure by that point, right? I think that that's incredibly empowering.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it does take time. It takes time for someone to work through that. And it takes a safe space, like you said, in which to explore that and learn. And it's one of the things I'm most proud of the curriculum when we first meet a student before they even come to Longy. So, like, they get admitted for a fall term, for instance. The summer before, we meet with them online because they're they're coming from all over the world. But we meet with them in small little cohorts of about 20 students, and we start to lay the foundation of what to expect when they get here. And we introduce the idea of something called the artist statement, which is very valued based, right? We're getting them to answer who, what, and why questions about themselves. What is bringing them to grad school? Why music? What is it that they think that they want to do? How do they think that they're going to get there? And more importantly, why should anyone else care? And that's a really tough question to answer. But these are questions that they've never been asked before. And for some of them, it's really uncomfortable to have to answer these kinds of questions. But we want to challenge them early on and start coaching them towards finding answers for themselves, digging deep and really finding out what drives them so that they're not going on autopilot or doing something because their teacher told them they should do it, or it's what's expected, or it's the right way to do something, but instead to always be questioning, to always challenge themselves, to think about, is this the right decision for me? Does it align with what I value, what I believe, and what I say about myself? And if it doesn't, have my values changed, or is this not the right opportunity for me? And that's something, even when they graduate in 2 years, they're still working through that. I think we could even say for us, we're still working through that, right? But we're
Yeah.
challenging them before they even walk in the door. And so then when we're hitting them, the first thing, which is a 2-day intensive about how we engage our audience, is different, right? We don't just walk on stage, perform beautiful music, and walk off. We really think about who's in my audience. We're asking ourselves, why are they coming? Why are they interested in this? How am I going to engage them? Whether I'm going to talk from the stage, or I'm going to set the seats up in a different way, or make intentional decisions about my performance. And again, it always goes back to just challenging the status quo. Just because we've always done it this way doesn't mean it's the right way to do something. And that's something I'm really proud of our students is that they are constantly pushing that barrier, that those boundaries, and really trying to create something that is true to who they are as artists. That's hard to find your voice, especially when, you've never been asked to do it before.
You mentioned seeing the smiles on their faces. You mentioned, the success of, you started to mention the success. I'm curious about, with such a big change and going a different path than the majority of conservatories, how do you measure the success of this curriculum? How do you measure the success of the changes that you make and the innovation that you're trying to create and sustain?
In a couple different ways. My favorite way is just having conversations. I'm always talking to the current students and alumni, just asking what's working, what's not working, what do you wish we could offer? What is it that you thought that class was and maybe it didn't end up being that? And I never shy away from critical feedback on classes, nor do our faculty, honestly. So it's really great to be able to have open conversation and dialogue with our students in that capacity. We do also have course evaluations, as all schools do, because that's important to have. And I read every single one for every single class. Now, do they always write everything? Not always, but also college students. So that's okay. But we're also looking at our alumni. What are they doing 2 years out of school? What are they doing 5 years, 10 years? And that's something that we are just now really starting to see some of the fruition. When you have a curriculum that has changed, it takes time to really see the impact that that has more long term, right? So right now we are starting conversations with our alumni that are about 5 years out from starting this curriculum and asking, what are you doing with it? And we are seeing a wide range of use of music within their careers and coming back and saying, I'm so grateful because I took that music and civic engagement course. And I am now out and I am creating this concert series in my community. It's because of what I learned in that class. I mean, right there, that's like the perfect testament that we're doing something right just with one student. I think one of the areas we've really thrived in is our Music as a Healing Arts initiative. We've been training therapeutic musicians, which are different than music therapists. It's the idea that you can go and use your music as a performing musician to create this idea of a healing environment. So we've had a number of students just have their eyes opened within our classes of how they can use their music as service and less as performance. And they're incorporating that in so many different ways. We've got alumni working here locally with a company called Shelter Music Boston that's going out into different homeless shelters and learning about that unique community, what their needs are, and then creating these beautiful musical experiences for them. And the feedback from that is just incredible. We have a couple of our alumni placed in a variety of hospitals, and they've now been hired by the hospital as staff to come regularly and give music. We have a new residency set up in a senior living center in Lincoln, Massachusetts, that a musician goes in every single week and works with the folks in memory care and the folks in skilled nursing. So we're seeing the kind of effect that the training for this particular program has really started to ripple out in our community here, which has led us to thinking a little bit more globally for global access, right? We're doing a great job here in Boston. How can we expand that? And a part of that has been our expansion of our online programming in education and now in therapeutic music. We just launched an online certificate training therapeutic musicians, fully asynchronous. So you can take it at any time from anywhere, get trained in these skills, and then go create these incredible opportunities in your community, in your town, in your country. It's only been out for a month, and I'm just really excited to see what the graduates of that
Wow.
program go and do.
Yeah, I mean, that's such an extrapolation of the innovative programs that you have in place, that musicians are being hired by
Yeah.
hospitals That's so inspiring. I love the civic engagement and community piece. We've been lucky to run a challenge with the National Institutes of Health that's wrapping up in the next month. The final submissions are in. Actually, at the time of this recording, they're in judging right now to pick the final winners. And the challenge is called the Community Champions for Disability Health. And these are 501c3 nonprofits around the US who are doing something for disabled populations in their community. One example of one of the teams is giving dance classes for people with Parkinson's. And yeah, the stories are just so inspiring, and it's so great to be a part of. And in addition to that, we do a lot with cities and municipalities, communities, regions of cities to help solve problems in their community using challenges, using a crowd. I'm curious, you mentioned at the beginning that they pick a community. I assume those are local to Cambridge, or how are the communities selected, and what do those projects look like for what that musician, that student does with that community?
Yeah, often they are local to the Boston, Cambridge area just because of proximity. But when I guess when I talk about community, I'm thinking not just of geographical location, but it also could be an identity community. So, we have a small
Great.
handful of active military, for instance, that come in our students. And so for them, community might be working with veterans. And so and maybe that's veterans back home. Like they could be from, I don't know, Minnesota or something, and they have a tie to that community there. And so they want to think about how can music help with PTSD, right? A really common
Yeah.
condition we see with that particular community. So when I talk community, it's not always just geographical. It has to be located in Boston, but it's often more about something that ties a group of people together. And we're often talking with our students about what communities do you already exist within? Maybe it's a religious community or a cultural community. What do you know about that group of people or that area? What are their strengths? What are their challenges? And then is there something that music can help fit? So I'm thinking of an example from last year that I heard the instructor tell me about. It's a person who's passionate about teaching music. And she grew up in a very, very poor neighborhood in Louisiana, I believe, and was very lucky to have a donor who paid for her to take voice lessons. And so she never would have gotten into this field if not for that kind of angel donor, for lack of a better word. And so one of the things she has always been really passionate about is paying that forward. So her project was to create a school in which there is $0 tuition paid by the students to teach them instruments, to teach them music theory, to prepare them if they really do want to pursue music in the future. So during the semester, she worked with the instructor, as well as we partnered her with a local community music education program here in Boston to really understand what it's like to work in a disadvantaged community. What are the things that she probably had no idea about, how expensive it is to run a program like that, to build something from scratch. And she came up with an entire proposal that she then went back to her hometown, pitched a partnership with the local church, and is already well on her way to getting something established there. So it's just one example of a community that was important to her because of her own personal tie. She already knew some about, but then needed to learn the tools behind how she could then create the change she was looking to make. Yeah, it was pretty incredible, and I'm really excited to see if this gets off the ground because it's something she's so passionate about when she talks about it.
That is incredible. That is. Any projects going on now? Any initiatives going on now that you'd like to highlight or talk about?
Goodness, we just had in early January. It's actually a very first time we taught this class. It was called a curation intensive, and we gave students 2 days to create unique programs for Longy. Actually, because we were trying to give them some guide rails of what to work on. Uh, so a unique program that we could feature for next year for Longy. And one of the things we asked them was, really think about who is your audience? Why should they come to a concert at Longy? What story you're wanting to tell. It had to fit in with next year's theme. And in 2 days, we saw them go from literally nothing, like complete ideation, to they turned in full 15-page proposals and did a 5-minute pitch on what they wanted to do. And it was such a wide range of concert experiences, many of which I was like, I would totally go to that. Like, that sounds incredible. And we are really excited. We're in the phase of that. We're going to pick one or two of them and actually fund them and do them next year. There's, again, like a really wide range. One was a concert focused on young children and how they want to use animals to kind of guide children through different cultural music. And we have a wide international population at our school. And so just wanting to introduce young kids to instruments they probably never heard before, and using animals as kind of a little guideway through those different musical experiences. It was very creative. Another one that wants to reimagine music. So taking a song, a well-known song from the Baroque period, but rearranging it in disco style, right? And then vice versa, Bohemian Rhapsody, and making it a Renaissance piece so that we can start to see that music is always evolving and changing and getting your audience excited to experience something like that. So I was just so inspired by what the students came up with in 2 days from start to finish. And the idea behind that was to get them used to what that looks like, to kind of incubate something in a short amount of time to help. These were all our first year students. So they're now going to head into the second year having, at least theoretically, put something on its feet like that. And because they're planning their own projects, their own capstones for the end of year two. And I'm really curious to see what we get now that they've had that experience in year one, and see what they come up with for year two.
Wow. Very, very cool. For our audience, if they want to learn more, if they want to hear about the projects you all have going on, learn more about Longy and yourself and connect with you, um, anything you'd like to highlight as to how folks can learn more and get involved?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, like anyone, our website is our best resource for you to find that information, just longy.edu. I'm always happy to answer any questions. So please don't hesitate to reach out, and you can feel free to share my contact information. But I would say come to a concert. If you're in the area, come in and experience an event here. You're going to see a wide range of genres, a wide range of experiences. And if you're not in the Boston area, that's fine. We live stream a lot of it, so you can check it all out online as well. But, we go out and we're sending students out in the world. So let's connect about what Longy alumni are in your area. And if there's someone that we connect with that has experience in something you're interested in, I'm happy to make that connection for you. That's really what we're all about, is that in-person connection. So happy to answer any questions anyone has.
That's so great. I assume with the
Mhm.
longy.edu, you mentioned come see a concert. Is there a schedule
Yep,
there
you
on
can
the
find it right
website?
on the events page there. 99.9% of our concerts are free. So anyone can come to them, and they're also free to live stream. You just need to sign up to receive the link for any of our live streamed events.
I will be signing up
Yes.
immediately. This has been so great, Rebecca. Thank you so much for your time, and very excited to see what comes out of Longy.
Thank you
Thank you
so
so
much. I
much.
really appreciate it.